Hey y'all, this is TCA Gaming, and I did not plan to do a video on this CGC thing because everybody's talking about it. There's a lot of videos out there with people who are involved in the market, but because I did receive a number of requests, including one from a patron, Michael, thank you very much for sending the request, I thought that I would go ahead and actually talk about it. So I'm going to play, for the most part, devil's advocate for this video. From what I've found, almost everybody that has been posting things on YouTube, eBay, or not eBay, YouTube, IG, different places like that, in general, they don't approve of what is going on. And from a variety of different angles. I'm going to try to cover some of that stuff. We're going to go through the article that they talked about there, and I'm going to play the other side. I'm going to give you guys the pros and cons that I believe are going to come from this. And yeah, I mean, it's just an opinion. That's all this is. We can't really change what's happening, but we can talk about it a little bit. So if you look here on the screen, this is what they posted on here. Let me actually go to the Chrome. There we go. So this is on CGC's website. They did post it on IG. They had like a video, but essentially these right here, this illustrator was a CGC 9 before. Now it's a CGC 10. Okay. Same thing here. I believe all of these with the new label, they were 9.5s. Going forward, anything that was in the old blue label 9.5 is going to be a 10. This is not going to be news for many of you who are listening to this video, but in case you haven't heard it, yes, CGC is changing up. They usually have a blue label, and the grades over here on the side. There's a lot of differences in what we have here, but they merged with the Certified Sports Guarantee Company, so CSG. And if you've seen CSG slabs, they look a lot closer to this, and I believe that has something to do with the style that they're using. I don't know if it's because sports is bigger on that side. I'm not really too sure why they went with this type of design, but I believe this is the biggest drawback from what I've seen commented on this change, this merge, is the label. See, CGC has lost a lot of branding with the blue label. I was talking with a friend, and he made a good point. He said he truly believes, with this new black label, or black and green label, whatever you want to call it, that this is essentially going to be like starting over. It's going to be like a new company, new grading scheme. Everybody's going to kind of look at the blue label completely, or not the blue label, but it was a blue label, but like the blue case almost, completely different. And here, I'll give you guys just an eyeball. So this is the old type label, and you can see where I've crossed out the 9.5 because now it's a 10. It's going to be on this side. But so this 9.5 first edition Charizard, I bought this, I believe it was off PWCC a month or two back. Now it's essentially going to be a 10. And for the longest time, people in the community have said, almost all the 9.5s in CGC cases, they would cross to a PSA 10. That's what they are. Now, that's not universal. There are many cases where they probably would not. But I would also argue, if you take 1,000 9.5s and you crack them out CGC and you had them graded at PSA, you're going to get a pretty high percentage of PSA 10s. If you took 1,000 PSA 10s and you cracked them out, you're going to get a high percentage of PSA 10s, but you're also going to get some that were sub PSA 10 as well. And the reason I make that analogy is because what CGC said that the purpose of doing this, making their 9.5s now 10s, was to kind of standardize their grade to what the market sees. And I agree, PSA 10 is kind of like the standard market 10. Like, that's what people are in general going for. I believe it was Dan who said it was like 37% of the cards that are graded at PSA are 10s. That's a super high rate, and it was nowhere near that with CGC. It does seem like they have changed their rates, or their grading standards, since their inception, when it was super strict, to where more 10s were being given out. However, it was still much less than PSA. On a consistent level, it was much harder to get a 10 from CGC than it was PSA for most cards. And again, all of this stuff, there's going to be exceptions, and this is still mostly opinion. I don't know, is this like reflecting light weird or something? I'm not sure what's going on there, so sorry if you guys are seeing like a difference flash through with the light. I haven't exactly lit up my my stuff in here in a while to do a video. It's been almost a month, But so that's my take on it. I believe that this is actually going to be a good long-term move. It's not like it's going to devalue the card. It's just changing the grade to be a more accurate representation of what the market sees. I don't personally like the black label. I wish they would have stuck with blue. I think it's very obvious when you look at a card like this that this is a CGC graded card, and you've got comics and other things. It's not just cards that have this blue label with CGC. I will say this: I was really unhappy with that black label when I first saw it yesterday. However, it's overnight. The pristine it's settling in a little bit. I'm hoping that in time I really come to like this new label. I am sending in all of my 9.5s to be regraded as a 10 because I do believe that having the 10 on the same card that previously had a 9.5 grade, it is actually going to appreciate the value, especially with something like this a Charizard first edition, where the difference in value from a 9.5 to a 10, I mean, could be 6 figures. I mean, that's a huge markup. But if you look at this, I'll show this card to you a little bit more closely. I believe I did it when I bought the card, but this is a really strong card. I mean, the centering is great. It's actually better centering than the PSA 10 that I have. You look on the back side, that's not on the card right there. That's like a little piece of dust. So I can back off, but it's very clean. Like, I believe this would have a really good shot at a 10 if I sent it to PSA. And that's what people use as the market standard usually, the PSA 10, because it is the most consistent 10 that is out there. And if CGC is making their regular gem mint 10 that of the same consistency, only time will be able to tell with that. I believe it is a good long-term move. If they slowly kind of have like a memory thing and they go back to making a 10 pretty tough. Let me see if I just move this down, if that'll help with this whole flashing thing. If they make it to where the 10 is going to be hard again, it's where it's too tough to actually get that 10 and build sets, then they might be back in the same situation they were before. But if you talk to many of the people who grade with PSA on a massive scale, the reason they don't grade as massive with CGC, it's because the 10 is more consistent with PSA. You can literally take 100 Japanese cards that are fresh out of a pack, good centering, they should be 10s. You send them to PSA, you're going to get a very high, maybe 80% plus PSA 10 return rate. If you send those to CGC, you're going to get a lot of 9.5s, maybe a few 10s, maybe a few perfect 10s. And you might see a little premium with that perfect 10, but overall the consistency of getting the mass 10s is going to outweigh that benefit. Now, these were not the only changes. They did away with the perfect 10. So let me see if I can scroll down over here. There's more stuff in here we'll talk about. You can see right here, there's the Black Lotus and something else. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh card. There we go. So instead of a perfect 10, they now have the pristine 10, which encompasses all previous pristine 10s, plus the new, I guess, cards that would have graded perfect going forward are just going to get the pristine label. That basically means that it has at least a 10, 10, 10, 9, 5. And anything that was graded previously as a perfect, they recommend you not send it in. I would recommend that as well. I think anybody should take that recommendation because it's going to be now, as they call it, a relic of the past. It's still going to be within the pop. That's not going to be updated. You're going to see the perfect 10s in there, but they're not going to be issued anymore. So if you have a perfect 10, it is going to be known that, I guess, if you go to sell it, that is the pristine of pristines. The new pristine has a possibility of being, as good a condition as perfect, but it's not going to get that label. It's just going to be this one new label. This one has grown on me a little bit. I still want to see this in person. I don't like the black over the blue, but I will say that the market has been asking for a new 10 label. They've been wanting something that's black, and you kind of got it here. I believe CGC had said during their live that one of the reasons they went with the black is because when you put it on a mat or something, it brings more attention to the grade and the card rather than the label. So I'm not sure that I completely agree with that, but it does look, I'm glad that they did make a differentiation to the pristine 10, and I think it was an okay move to pull away the perfect, because that's 3 different 10s. It makes it a lot more nuance to make the Gem Mint 10 not be as devalued when there's 2 more 10s above it. So I believe the Gem Mint 10 will be kind of like the market standard, but then you'll have this Pristine 10, which could bring in a premium. Whether it does or not, only time will tell. We'll just have to see how Gem Mint 10s are perceived, or how the grades actually come through on CGC side. I will say that I've seen in a lot of bulk promos, very pack fresh, coming from sealed packs of 25 and things like that. And my 10 rate has been really low. So I want to see how that changes with the new grading standards, where the old 9.5 would now be graded as a 10. Whether or not they can maintain that consistency too is also going to tell whether or not how long term this kind of change will be and how good it will be. Right now it's being received very poorly by the public. People, they don't like the label. I'm hearing a lot of people say that they don't like the fact that they made the 9.510. I'm actually in favor of that. I believe that is something that had to be done if they were ever going to be on a competitor level of PSA. Most people are saying that this is going to put them in the ground, but I believe that right now it looks bad, but I think in the long term it's going to have a good effect for them, as long as they handle it and make it a consistent type thing. If they make more changes like this, then it's going to, especially anytime soon, it would really rock the market and make them less confident that they could be confident in the company itself to, whatever they say. Like right now, I like this change, but if they reneged on it within a week, kind of like BGS did, that would cause a lot of issues. In fact, it would cause a lot of monetary issues, because there have been many people who've been investing in 9.5s. I heard someone say they invested $10,000 as soon as they heard this and just went and bought stuff on eBay. I was tempted, but I figured people have probably already bought, a lot of that stuff. I got lucky with a few items that I had just bought. In fact, I called the guy and I was like, "Hey man, how do you feel about this deal?" Because it was a big deal that I did. And you guys will hear about it probably in time. But also, there are the other changes. Obviously, right here on the front, they've got the cert number and the barcode. I really like that. As a seller, I did not like the fact that the barcode was on the backside as well as the cert number. While on the front, you didn't have that. You could actually take, 3 of these Charizards with the exact same or different, well, with one front, and then sell it all in the same listing, even with the different backs. Without any way to identify, differentiate this Charizard base first edition hollow 9.5 from the other two, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference from the front, especially if the centering was pretty close and the hollow pattern was pretty close, or the hollow pattern really wasn't that visible. I think it's a lot easier to scam. So to me, this is a good security precaution to put in there, maybe more so for lower end items where people aren't inspecting the card as hard, but it's also nice just to be able to see it on the front and to know that, hey, I don't have to flip the card over to check the cert to make sure I know what it is. Whenever somebody buys a card, they can see it directly sitting there on the front. They can scan the barcode. It's not that big of a change, but I do like it. I believe that was a good move. The no subgrades, that was something that a lot of people were in an uproar over. They basically, it's somewhere in this article, they did away with it. You guys know I don't like subgrades. I think that is both bad as the consumer and as the person, the company taking the money in to grade them. They did say that it was 5% of people were submitting with subgrades, and yeah, that caused a little bit of an uproar too, because they're like, well, the only reason 5% of people buy the subgrades is because you jack the price up. Well, the price was most likely jacked up because that is an accurate reflection of the induced cost from having to add those subgrades. Adding subgrades to a card isn't as simple as, hey, I examined this card, I'm going to give it 5 on center, or 9 on centering, a 9 on edges. There's a lot of other factors that go into that. You have to understand, all the way down to as soon as someone opens up a package there at CGC or wherever the grading company is, the person who filled out that subgrades is going to be on a line item, so they have to make sure that they, when they pull that item out, that it's accurately reflected with subgrades, that they actually put in the subgrades. They have to train people how to put in the subgrades themselves. And to me, I don't think that it's going to have that much added value. Of course, there are exceptions. There are going to be times where the subgrades would add value. But to me, even on like higher end cards, it is not something that is needed and could even hurt the card, detract away. It does give the buyer more information. I do see how it does give the buyer more information there. But if you are the one grading the card, because that's the person who is paying for that grading fee, like that's the one who's going to be paying for the grading fee for the subgrades, for them to buy that, they have to be convinced that it's going to increase the value of their card with those subgrades. And to me as a seller, I don't see how that's possible. Like even I believe you have a better chance with, say, the best scenario. So let me show you. Let me pull this off here. So say the best scenario with this card, it's 9.5, 9.5, 10, and 10. 0.5 higher, it would have got a 10, right? And then the worst case scenario is 9.9, 9.85. If this card was a 9.9, 9.85, or 9.5, 9.5, 9.5, sorry, I was doing a 9 grade there. 9.5, 9.5, 9.5, and a 9, yeah. The worst case scenario, most likely that would still get a 9.5. The best case scenario, that card would probably still get a 9.5 overall grade like it did, but it probably has a better chance at getting a 10 than it would if you did with the subgrade. So I believe it actually pulls away from the grade itself too, because the cards are being more strictly examined, which again, that sounds like a good thing, but if you are the person who is submitting the card, you want to have that higher grade. If it's on the edge, if it's a borderline 9-10, you want that 10. And I believe if you get subgrades, and the data from what I've heard from other channels supports this, you actually have a worse chance of getting that higher grade if you get the subgrades on there, because it's being examined more closely. And once you assign a number to each of those 4 categories, if you meet certain criteria, you can't bump it up to that 10. So like if you had 2 9.5s and 2 10s, there's no way that this is going to get a 10 based on the parameters for what is required to get a 10 on a card. However, if you saw that, you might be thinking, okay, this looks really good, even though I think it's a 9.5 and the other 2s are 10s. I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 10. And this is all speculation in my head and from what other people have said too. But to me as a seller, I never submit with the subgrades because I think I have a better chance at getting a 10 grade or a higher whole number grade without those subgrades. So that's why I don't submit with them. Other people, I'm not, it may strictly be because of the money, but if that $15 is a true accurate representation of what it takes for them to charge for people to actually use subgrades, then that 5% is a more accurate representation than, say, 30% at a $5 subgrade upcharge. Because if it costs more than $5, then it's putting themselves in the hole, and it's just a way to get people on board to add those subgrades. Now, I don't know if $15 is more accurate or not. It does seem a bit steep for something like that, but if you think about how much it can slow down the overall process, how much they have to invest in training, software, whatever it takes. Like, I'm not an expert on any of that stuff, but I can see how all of that could add up over time. And even if it just doubles the time of grading a card, they could have graded a whole nother card during that time. And if the margin is the same on the subgrades as it is grading one card, then they could have just graded a second card and then had that second card out into the market versus the one card with subgrades, and they're making the exact same amount of money in profit. So again, all that stuff, it's all opinion, but I believe that the no subgrades was a plus. I do see why people could get mad about the 5% being based off of the $15 subgrades price. But if that's an accurate representation of the actual cost, making it to where the profit is the same as if they graded another card or the time wise, then to me that is the number that should have been used in the first place. But the way it come out, it made a lot of people mad because the price was like 4x. I mean, it used to be a lot cheaper, and that is the main reason it decreased, from whatever percentage it was before. I said 30, but that was just a random number that I pulled out. But it was obviously higher when the price was lower. But prices do change on that kind of stuff as companies develop these tools to figure out how much it actually costs to do certain aspects of the job. There are times when I've increased my price for grading cards for other people, then I just did away with it completely because it wasn't worth my time. And even now, when I grade through CGC, I have a significant markup. It's a lot more than other places, but it limits how many people can actually grade through me. And some people say, well, why don't they just leave it there and just, even if they have to make it even more expensive, let the subgrades option be there for the highest tier and people who want to have it. Again, how much do they have to mark it up before it just looks completely ridiculous versus how much money it's going to bring in for the small amount of people who are going to do the subgrades while they're still having to keep it in their software and train people to be able to be ready when those subgrades do come through on a very small amount of cards. So it's one of those things where I get it from both sides, but at the end of the day, it was a decision that I would have probably agreed with. And if they'd left it on there, it wouldn't have affected me. So what else was there to talk about? There's a lot of stuff that went through here. I think those were like the main points that people had talked about. I believe they're still doing 0.5 grades. Don't quote me on that. I think somebody had sent me a screenshot where they had asked CGC on a question and they had responded to them. I don't know if they're still doing 9.5. I believe that they are, but if they are, I'm not sure what the grading standards are for that, since 9s are still 9s and so forth. The only thing that's changing was the 8 or the 9.5 is going to a 10. Another thing that people were talking about, most of the stuff was done off of surveys. I don't know who they surveyed, what kind of group that they did, but yeah. So like, here's that. Are you guys looking at? Oh, you guys aren't even looking at the same thing I'm looking at. So this is the blue. This is why I think it would have been nice if they kept the blue, because I mean, you see these cards right here. Like, I get changing the pristine to something like that black label, but maybe not all the cards. That would have been a lot more sleek in my opinion, just to keep everything kind of blue. But we'll see where it goes. Also, if you have that 9.5 and you want to get the new 10 label, or if you have a pristine 10, you want to get the new pristine 10 label, you have to dish out. So if I want to get this into the new label, which I will, because I mean, it's an upgrade, you have to dish out $5 per card. They did say in the live, if you have a massive collection, they will work with you. You got to reach out to them. There was a few people to specifically reach out to. So if you want to do that, you can. I'm going to be hopefully trying to reach out to somebody, and because I've got a lot of 9.5s, and then I have some pristine 10s. I think I'm going to send in my pristine 10s as well. The perfect 10s, I've actually pulled all of mine off of eBay. I don't want to sell those because I think that in time they're going to have a real premium, but who knows? I don't know that for sure. I'm a little shaky on that part. I'm still a little indifferent about whether or not I like the fact that they took away the perfect 10s, but maybe it'll work out. I don't know. I didn't have too many of them. They're not that they were definitely never too easy to get, but now you're not going to be able to get those in there, but they're going to stay in the pop reports. They also said that any 9.5 is going to be updated to a 10 in the pop report, and that'll be accurately reflected. But we all know, if I put this as a 9.5 anywhere for sale, like, there's going to be a group of people that have no idea what's going on, and that group of people isn't going to bid on this as if it was a 10. Then you're going to have a group of people who know it used to be a 9.5, so they're going to bid on it like it was a 9.5, and then you're going to have a group of people who know that it transitioned to a 10, and they're going to bid on it as if it was a 10 now, but they know that, it's transitioned from a 9.5. You're going to have a fourth group of people who bid on it because it's a 10, and they have no idea that it transitioned to a 10. So I think that there's going to be a weird dichotomy of people right now. Is dichotomy the right word? There's going to be a weird subset of a bunch of different subsets of people who are buying these items as there's a transition, and you might see some market fluctuations on a good bit of stuff until it becomes settled, and the new black label 10 becomes the market norm for CGC. Long term, I do not think that they are going under because of this. I believe that they made this move because they realized, to be a long-term competitor with PSA, they have to make a change now, and it may take a while, for this to settle in. So to me, whether or not this was a good move or not, it's really going to be based off of where CGC goes from here, and how long, does this change really set in. If you look at PSA and their history, they've had quite a few different types of cases, but almost all of them are recognizable in, like the red label. But, this is a big change in, from blue to black. It's what was it? CGC trading cards, now CGC cards or something. I didn't realize that there was a difference. And, they could have probably left that out, and not many people have even really known about the transition. But before I get off of here, let me look back over here, make sure there wasn't anything that I forgot about, because I just started rambling and, then I didn't go over it. I did see during the live, there was so many people just like hounding them about different, basically the stuff that we just talked about, the no subgrades, the cards being devalued, which I don't see this 9.5 going down in price, because now it's a CGC 10. I actually see the price going up. Maybe the new 10 or whatever is going to have a difference in price compared to the margin it had prior to a PSA 10, but I don't know. I don't really see that. I think even if, I think the new Gem Mint 10s are going to be a lot closer to a PSA 10 than the Gem Mint 9.5 CGCs. So it is what it is. If they don't actually change their standards and 10s are just as hard as before, then yeah, it could be a bad move, but we'll see how that goes. I think if your card is valued over $10,000, you do have to pay more than $5 to have it reholdered. So like this Charizard that I have, I think it's like a $30 charge or something like that. I really like the fact that I don't know why, but I like the fact that it's aligned to the left instead of centered. Centering makes more sense in my head, but I guess because I'm so used to PSA labels that the left side is where it being aligned to the left to me just looks good. I'm looking at this, but I'm not really reading it too heavy there. I know a lot of people said that since these subgrades are being done away with, are they going to refund people for the subgrades? Are they going to take care of the label change for any of these cards? And that could be a legitimate argument right there, because you did pay for something, and now essentially what's on that label, it's no longer accurate. Even though the pop is going to be updated, you can scan this, it's going to be a 10. You really do have to, you're having to risk sending it in the mail, so you're paying for that shipping. You've got the risk in the mail. Then you're going to have it, you got to pay $5 to have it reholdered. You're going to have the risk of it being cracked out. Then it has to be put into a new case and shipped back to you. So I can see why people are upset over that. Because the service that you paid for really it's no longer there. And so if you have one or two cards, that's where I think the little guy is going to kind of feel not as good about this situation versus the people who have thousands of cards that they're wanting to send in and have reholdered. They're probably going to be taken care of. They're going to work with them a lot more because it's massive. It's a big bill. But so I hope that in time CGC does listen to the people who have those kind of legitimate complaints. The whole subgrades, if you just paid $15 for subgrades and now it's gone, at least they're not charging the people who have the cards that are still there, and they're giving them the option to put them in the new label. But everyone who just paid for subgrades, to me it wasn't smart to pay for subgrades in the first place, but my opinion doesn't matter in that. You paid for it because that's what you wanted, especially if this is for your personal collection. That's what you wanted. You wanted to know why they graded the way it was graded. So with subgrades not being done on future cards, what do they do in that situation? Really, they did exactly what they were supposed to. They did exactly, if they gave you the subgrades, they did exactly what you asked them to do. They gave you subgrades, they assessed each one of those, and they put it on the label. But going forward, if you wanted to have something matching, I'm not really sure where that argument comes in. But if you have a good argument for why you should get a refund on your subgrades, I would just reach out to them. They're pretty good about getting back to you quickly. At least that's been my experience. I realize some of you are going to say, well, you have a good working relationship, with somebody in a platform. If you don't, just keep reaching out. Hopefully somebody will reach back out to you. I think in time, this right here, if they're not providing good service, in the transition, it's going to show through the company. And if they are, You know, they work with people. They take the hit on the jaw right now because they realize they're going to piss a lot of people off when you change stuff like this. And they continue to work with you. It should show over time as well. But anyways, guys, I know that this is probably going to be like a very hot take, you know, for all this stuff, because I gave mostly the positives and the opposite side of things, you know, for what everybody in the community, except it seems like myself, has been kind of complaining about. But let me know what you think about, you know, what I said down there in the comments. And if you completely disagree, that's fine. Just don't get too vulgar. It's probably going to auto block it anyways. But as always, I appreciate you guys for taking the time to watch, and thanks to Michael, who requested me to make this video, because I wasn't going to make one, but because he was like the only question that I've received this past week while I've been on since I've gotten back from vacation. I wanted to address it, and I hadn't done a Q&A for this month because last week I had 0 questions. That's kind of crazy, right? But I had 0 questions last month, so I just want to see if anybody asked anything for this month, and he did. So this is for everybody, but it's because of Michael at Patreon, and I definitely appreciate that. But as always, guys, thanks for watching the video and supporting the channel. I'll have more videos coming out soon-ish, week or two, but I'm still not rushing it right now. I'm enjoying some stuff with my family. Thanks.